contemporary art these days is obsessed with the politics of identity. And in a way, you visit any contemporary art gallery, museum, or theater, chances are that the works are essentially concerned with identity or race or politics or privilege. So this concept of the quest for truth, freedom, and the sacred, it's gone now. And so it's interesting you mentioned this metamorphosis and kind of like politics, because you dabble in the same kind of idea about the politics of identity. Can you explain why is this so important? And I'm going to peel the onion a little more, but I want to understand, why
I I
for you, be
I
specific. Like,
I, I
yeah,
I'm interrupting you, I guess. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but
no, it's fine.
I grew up with the politics of identity because I grew up gay. I know I was gay when I was in fifth grade.
Okay.
And that was at a time when that was not at all acceptable in the US or anywhere in the world. People didn't even speak about such things in public,
Yeah,
not even in private most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Um, I came out in high school as being gay to my friends, my schoolmates, my family in 1968, which was
Wow,
just shortly
1968.
after Stonewall, I believe. At that time, it was still shocking. It wasn't the time when your parents would hug you and say, "Oh, that's okay, I still love you." It was a time when
This is,
you heard things like, "I was lucky to have liberal parents.
yeah,
I had quite liberal parents, so I was lucky that way." But they still had the attitude that, "Well, you'll outgrow this, you will change,"
it's a
blah
phase or
blah blah. They
some,
weren't real happy with it.
yeah.
So identity was important to me. And also, people will find it hard to believe from reading my Facebook posts. But when I was young, I was sort of a diehard communist. I sat in the school library and read the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. And I was really into that. It seemed like a real plan for the future that I would enjoy and that I would think would be worth striving for.
And you've changed now.
And yes,
You've
and
changed now, drastically changed.
I've changed drastically. It's been a slow process, which maybe comes from aging,
No, I mean
but
politically. I mean politically. You've changed now.
politically.
Yeah.
And people will think I'm on the right wing. I still think of myself as an old-fashioned liberal, but to me, the left has gone so far over the deep edge with identity politics, where everything is a discussion about pronouns and everything else, and it's like, oh, there's more important things to talk about in
No,
this
but
world.
didn't didn't
Much
didn't
more
that
important things
did
to talk
didn't did
about.
not? There's somebody today who's in the fifth grade who knows that they are, queer, and it might serve them in the future. So don't you feel like a nuanced conversation of the extreme left, in a way, uh, allows for the how do I say it, a more balanced kind of a worldview
I think
in
in
general?
Western, there's a big difference between Indian society and American society and European society.
Okay,
And in
explain more.
American society, it's so saturated. You have books about A.B. Gay, books like that in children's primary schools.
Yeah,
They teach kids about gender, they teach people about different sexual orientations, even when they're young.
and here,
Um,
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's needed or wanted. I don't know if that would have helped me when I was in fifth grade or not. Um, but I feel that what we're losing is we're losing the sense of a common shared humanity.
Hmm.
We're all breaking down into these tribal groups that we have to, declare ourselves. I'm bisexual, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I'm gender fluid,
You
all
compartmentalize
of
yourself.
this.
You compartmentalize yourself.
Compartmentalize, yes, yes. And to me, we're all human.
Yeah. I want to ask you, in the reason I asked you those white gaze questions and the questions that were related to uh, the Eurocentric lens, is because your artworks themselves have that as the central theme of your artworks. You are the white guy looking at this country. You are in a white suit, a white guy traveling in your own artworks through the landscape of India. And how can you explain that story? Can you explain how that started?
Well, when I when I exhibited India poems throughout India, and we took it to many different cities, and even in Sri Lanka, I got a lot of this feedback from the post-colonial theory crowd that I was, being Orientalist in some way.
Hmm.
And so I decided I needed to make a change because I wanted to see myself as well as see others. Okay. So when I came to Udaipur, there were two things that I did. The first thing is I constructed a photo studio
Yeah.
with backdrops because there was often a confusion that I was somehow documenting India. And in
But
my
weren't
mind,
you?
I was not documenting,
You weren't.
doc, I wasn't documenting India. To me, I was making pictorialist photographs,
Yeah.
which is what I always did. I made pictorialist photographs.
Yeah.
So I moved it into a studio setting, natural light, with painted backdrops. To me, they announced to the people that they were constructions and
Oh.
they were a little tongue in cheek. They were a little tongue in cheek. I thought that people viewing these are not going to confuse this with some white guy coming to India and like documenting a culture he knows nothing about, which I really don't. I still, after 20 years,
Oh,
I
come
know
on.
very little about Indian culture
Yeah.
compared to scholars. Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that strategy worked because as soon as I did that, the response to my work totally changed. Then suddenly people started to enjoy it, and
Yeah.
I started people to really like it. I started getting some exhibition invites,
Yeah.
start to make sales, not just to foreigners, but sales to Indians as well.
Yeah.
So that whole thing changed. But what was missing was me. And at that point, other than one or two photos,
Yeah.
I was not putting myself in the frame.
Yeah.
And so that's how the miniatures began because I wanted to tell another story. And that was my story as the guy in India, the foreigner in India.
Yeah.
And so we did a
I,
box set called The Secret Life of Waswo X Waswo.
can you explain that
And
the foreigner in India? Why was it important to for you to? Do you have a story for that? Do you have a kind of explanation for what it meant to you personally? Like the foreigner in India. Why was that story so? Uh, why did that
well,
pique?
because part of it was just my own bumbling and lack of knowledge of the culture. Part of it was like
Yeah.
understanding my own foolishness and being out of place. Part of it was feeling like the other, and part of it was sort of a response to this whole notion that I was the other. So
Yeah.
I wanted to look at myself. And so that's when I started working with RBJ, the miniaturist, giving him ideas and we started out very simply because our BJ came from the bazaar. He was not a fine art trained artist.
Yeah.
He came from the bazaar where he was painting birds on note cards.
Yeah.
Um, and I just started telling stories of my travels initially.
Yeah.
So the secret life of Waswo X Waswo.
And you commissioned him then to kind of collaborate with him now. Is it like do you,
Yeah, we had to talk about collaboration
yeah.
because now I have basically two collaborators. Okay, Rajesh Soni, who hand colors the photographs,
Yeah.
and RVJ paints the miniatures,
Yeah.
and Dalpat Singh, who also helps paint the miniatures, and Shankar Kumawat, who's become our border artist.
Lovely.
And we're a very tight knit group at this point, because we've worked together for 16 years. We're a
Wow.
very tight knit group.
Hmm.
It works on different levels. Okay. So Rajesh is the hand colorist. I always wanted to give people credit. And we talked and we decided that Rajesh's name would be on the back of the photo. My name would be on the front of the photo because it was basically my idea, my click. But he put the work of hand coloring and brushing all the paint on the black and white photo.
Yeah.
And so he needed to be credited. So he signs on the back. But whenever we exhibit or whenever we've had a book, his name is out there front and center. We always talk about Rajesh
Yeah.
as the hand colorist because he has an interesting story. He's third generation photo hand colorist. His grandfather worked for the Miwari court.
Yeah.
So his story is not something I want to downplay. I want Rajesh to be prominent. Okay.
Yeah.
With our VJ, actually, initially, at the very beginning, our VJ signed the front and I signed the back
Yeah.
because I felt I cannot paint like this. I cannot take credit for the painting, even though I've come up with the concept.
Yeah.
But as times went on, first of all, there was some gallery pressure that my name had to be on the front. I talked with our VJ and he said that's perfectly fine.
What
And
was
basically, I
what was the pressure? I'm just curious.
gallery pressure, name recognition, because they said otherwise you're an artist who's basically, are you one artist? Are you two artists? Are you three artists? If
Yeah.
you're working together, it has to be brought under a single brand, to use that term, which was Waswo X Waswo.
Yeah.
And also, I felt I had a right to have my name there, quite honestly, after a while, because they were my ideas. They're not Rakesh's ideas at all. They all spring from my head.
Yeah.
I make the initial ideas, I sketch them out, or sometimes these days I make things in Photoshop to give him.
Hmm.
And I do a tremendous amount of time of explanation of what the meaning is, what we're trying to express, what I
Yes.
want to have expressed.
Yes.
And many times, and I don't want to downplay any of my artist talent, but I go on almost a regular basis when I'm in Udaipur. Ganpad and I go on the Enfield to these different karkhanas, and I have to watch over the artists and say, this is not in the right place. This is too big. This is too small.
True.
This
Yeah.
is the wrong color. This hat is too small.
Yeah.
It's not working for one reason or another.
Yeah.
So with all of that involvement, I feel it is still my art on some level.
But
Okay.
you've been accused, you said, of it being misunderstood.
I've had people come and basically say, well, you do nothing, everybody else just works for you. Like I'm some sort of shopkeeper or corporate owner, who just has people do things for me.
And that
And
hurts you.
that's so untrue. And it's really painful
Yeah,
because
I'm sure.
I work so hard every day. I work so hard every day, not only keeping the process of the painting and the artwork going
Yeah.
and make sure that it's developing in a proper way, but I'm also shooting photographs out at the studio. I'm doing things like this interview.
True.
I'm making PDFs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm making proposals to galleries. I'm dealing with galleries. I'm fighting with galleries to get my work sent back to me.
Yeah.
All of these things come down to me.
Yeah, it's work, man. Yeah.
Now, it's work, man, yes.
Yeah.
And one thing is, and I'll say it right now, all of my artists get paid for everything they do.
Obviously.
Everything they do, they get paid for right away,
It's professional.
immediately.
Yeah. And I had a question.
I want to finish this.
Yeah.
I don't get paid unless it makes a sale.
Oh, yeah.
So you can go to Gallery Espace's website right now and you can find maybe 10, 15 miniatures that have never sold.
Yeah.
So all of those have been paid for. The artists have been paid, the framer's been paid, the box maker's been paid, the shipper's been paid.
In advance.
But I haven't paid.
Yeah.
I haven't been paid.
Yeah.
So I mean,
you take
I'm the one who invests the money and the time, and it's kind of a gamble.
Yeah, the stakes
and
are high.
I feel I deserve some credit for that.
Obviously, you're a professional. I mean, you function in this, you dabble in this professionally. That's perfect.
Right.
But that's good. You take all the risk too. It's like any professional would. Yeah, perfectly. It's good
Right.
it's good you put it out there.